Bright Duty. Every student matters.
Hello guys, welcome back to our class. So today we have chapter 6 from the section which deals with geography, and the title for this chapter is called Power Resources. So in the earlier chapter we have done what resources are. Right? We looked at various kinds of resources, its conservation, its significance, its importance, its use. In this chapter, we'll focus only on the power resources. Okay? Resources from where we draw power, from where we get power for the works that we do. What kind of works, what kind of significance, what that works does, that we'll look into as we go on looking at various aspects of this chapter. So let's begin. Now, first thing that comes to our mind, or the first thing that we come across in this chapter, is called energy. Okay, when we deal with power resources, we come across a term called energy. Now let's look at what energy is. Any capacity for doing work, okay, any kind of work, for making sure that the machine works, or for making sure that the car works. Okay, so the capacity of the car to work, to move from one spot to another, from the machine to manufacture goods, the capacity of the machine to manufacture certain goods like clothes or plastic boxes, etc. Or a force that produces an activity, any force which is used for the production of an activity. Say for example, force used to connect the water from the dam to a channel for irrigation, or the force used in the water for using that water in the production of electricity. So the force that is used in the production of electricity, or the capacity of that machine in the production of electricity, that force and capacity for doing any activity is called energy. Okay? Energy is used for the activities that we do, or activities that take place around us. Any kind of work in industries, at home, in getting electricity, water, all kinds of things that sometimes we may forget, we may not realize. But in all of these activities, which makes our daily lives much easier, energy is required. Various kinds of energy is required. So that is why we humans, we use variety of such energy, or sources of energy, sources of such energies, okay, for activities, so that our lives are easier to live. Okay, we have a nice livelihood, comfortable life. We have electricity, we have running tap water, we have gas to cook food, we have petrol to run our vehicles, etc. Alright, so some of these energy sources are chemical energy, which are fossil fuels and woods that we get from the trees, from the jungles, from the forests. Geothermal energy, tidal power, hydroelectric power, nuclear energy, solar energy, and wind power. So these are some of the energies or energy sources that we use. Okay, we use for getting certain services, for making sure that our lives are comfortable, that we get things that we need for our survival, for our livelihood. Okay. Now, apart from this, apart from the general energy sources that we all use, there is one section of energy which is called traditional sources of energy. These energies are of traditional type. Okay, they're not well developed. They have been in use for a long time. Okay, now this traditional type of energy, this is used in the rural areas, in the villages, and in the countrysides. Alright, and what are these energies, or how do we get this energy? This is received, or it is received from firewood that we fetch from the forest, that we get from the wood, from the trees, and cow dung cake. These are traditional sources of energy. Firewood, cow dung cake, a cake like a thing which is made out of cow dung. Right? If you go to the villages, the rural areas, you see women and other people being busy making the cow dung cakes and drying them in the sun. That is used as fuel to cook their food. Okay, so these are traditional sources of energy which are commonly used in the rural households, in the houses, in the countrysides, or in the villages. Now, these traditional sources of energy, they provide 70% of the energy required in the rural households. So, most of the energy which is needed in the rural households are provided by the traditional sources of energy, which are firewood and cow dung cakes. Okay, and because of the use of these energy sources, cow dung and firewood, right? So firewood is that comes from the forests, that comes from the woods, right? So as a result of the decreasing forest area, if the forests are decreasing, if the trees are being cut, if the deforestation is increasing rapidly, then what happens? The provision of firewood declines. The ability of the people in the villages to get or acquire firewood declines. Okay, availability of firewood declines. All right, and what happens with rural area people in the rural areas, they use cow dung cakes, another sources of energy, right? But cow dungs are also used as manures in the fields for cultivation of crops. Manures are fertilizers, natural fertilizers, which makes the soil fertile, which increases the fertility of the soil and helps in the growth and proper cultivation of the crops, right? So cow dung is used as manure also. Now when cow dung is used as manure, then the use of cow dung as cow dung cakes also declines. All right, so what is happening? The decreasing forest areas, the use of cow dung as manure, that also affects the use or requirement of the people in rural areas as sources of energy, which is firewood and cow dung cakes, because they are used for other purposes as well. There are factors affecting the use of these two elements, these two factors, these two basic fundamental elements of sources of energy in the rural areas. Okay, so because of this problem, there is need for other energy sources in the villages. Okay, because their need for the sources of energy, which is firewood and cow dung cakes, that have been affected by their need for other purposes or by causes of deforestation. Alright, so as a result, what happens? They generate more need for other sources of energy for the villagers living in the countryside or the rural areas. Alright, now let us look at types of sources. There are various types of sources, okay, and there are two main categories of sources. The first one is called conventional sources. All right, now these conventional sources are coal, petroleum, natural gas, hydel and thermal electricity, firewood, etc. Alright, now these are naturally found. Alright, they're found in the nature. These are conventional sources. They have been existing on planet for a long time, and they have been used as energy sources. Alright, so they are called conventional sources. The other type of resource, the other type of energy source is called non-conventional sources. Okay. Now these are little different than the conventional sources. Now these sources, non-conventional sources, are solar, wind, tidal, geothermal, biogas, and atomic energy. Okay. Now these are energy sources which are there, okay, which are in the environment, which are available, but they are somehow made to use, or they are worked together. People work with these sources to make the use of it as energy sources for the people. Okay, so they work with it. In the conventional, they don't have to work with it. Okay, they don't have to do anything with it. For example, if the coal is conventional source of energy, then coal is found, or coal is people so the coal is acquired, all right, and it is used for various purposes, all right, in order to conduct certain activities. Now for the non-conventional sources like solar, the sunlight, okay, now we cannot directly use the sunlight to make certain activities run, or make certain activities to take place. That sunlight has to be converted into energy. Okay, so there are processes to make the sunlight useful as a energy source. Okay, and that energy source, which is solar energy, that is then used for conducting certain activities useful for human beings. All right, so this is the difference between conventional and non-conventional sources. Now, all this while, we have been learning about different sources of energy, all right, and how we use all these sources of energy for our livelihood, for our sustenance, right? But why do we need energy sources? Why is it important? Because these energy sources, they provide us with light. They give us heat when we need heating, right? When we need heat during the winter, we have certain equipments which makes sure that our house is heated, which makes sure that the floor is heated, that we are protected from the cold outside. Okay, we need light. We cannot live in the dark, right? So when there is darkness, we just switch on the light, and then the room becomes light. The room does not have any darkness, right? So those light, heat is provided by source of energy, all right? And energy sources also propel vehicles. So the cars, the buses, the trains, the ship, etc., aeroplanes, all those are moving, all those are transporting goods and people, because they are being propelled by the energy sources. Some of the energy sources like coal, petroleum, natural gases, these are used to move the vehicles. Okay, because of the use of petroleum, the cars can move from one spot to another. The aeroplanes can move, and you can travel from one country to another and not care about the distance, how far the distance between these two places are, right? And energy sources also make machines work. Like for example, in the industries, factories, they use huge machines. Some use small scale machines, some use large scale machines. They are huge machines. For these machines to run, human beings are not enough. They need energy sources, right? Like petroleum, coal, natural gases, etc. And those energy sources help the machines to run. And when the machines run, then they work in manufacturing. They work to manufacture products which are meant to be manufactured. For example, clothes, plastic bottles, utensils, etc. Alright, so this is why we need energy sources. Okay. Now with that we move on to the first topic. In the first topic we'll look at conventional sources of energy. So we said that energy sources are divided into two types. The first is conventional sources and the second is non-conventional sources. So in this topic, as we look at conventional sources, we'll look at some of the examples of these conventional sources. So first is coal. Now when we say coal, what do you think of? We think of black, rocky thing, right? Which looks like a rock, which is black in color and used for burning. It looks like a coal, or sometimes it looks like rock, right? And it burns. If you light it, then it burns, right? So that is coal. Now coal, how is it created? It's created from decaying plant materials compressed over millions of years to form a solid mass of almost pure carbon. So coal is basically formed as a result of decay of plants, animal materials. Okay. So once the plants and animals decay, they go into the soil. Okay, and as they accumulate over years and years and years, they compress, right? They compress, and this compressed materials, if it remains for millions of years, they form a solid mass. It becomes a solid, like a rock structure. Okay, so that is a mass of pure carbon, and that is what is known as coal. Now, coal is the world's most abundant fossil fuel. Of all the fuel, okay, coal is the most abundant one. It is available in a large quantity compared to the other fuels, okay, compared to oil, compared to petroleum. Coal is abundantly available in the world compared to the other sources. Okay, it's found in a variety of forms. Now it is not only formed in it is not only found in a rock like structure. Sometimes it's formed or it's found in a very thin sheet like structure, like paper like structure, or sometimes it's found in different variety of form or in a different structure. Okay, and how it is found depends on the degree of compression, how it has been compressed, whether tightly or loosely, and the depth and the time of burial. So when this has compressed, when the materials which have decayed to make the materials compress when that has taken place, how deep it has gone inside or under the soil or buried under the soil or wherever it's buried, and how that compression has been over the time, whether it has been tightly compressed or not so tightly compressed, and for how long. All those factors that go on to make sure that the coal is found or made available in the form that it is available. Okay, if it is available in a rock-like structure, very hard, looks like a rock and very difficult to break, then we know that it has been compressed for a very, very long time. Okay. Now, how it is formed? How is the coal formed? The first step in the coal making process is that it forms as a peat. The decaying materials gets compressed, and then it forms like a sheet. All the sheet gets compressed. Alright, so that is called peat. So the first step in the coal making process is the formation of the peat. Alright, now over time, as time goes by, the peat was compacted beneath other deposits. So this peat, it gets compressed and compacted with other deposits. So this decaying materials, it gets compressed by other deposits over time as the time goes on. Okay, so and if there are any water in that peat, as these materials keep on depositing and getting compressed, the water, if there is any, that gets squeezed out. Okay, with the process of deposits, with the process of compression, the water gets squeezed out. Okay, and methane, the gas which also when present, that gas is called methane, that is also expelled in the atmosphere. So the compression over time takes place in such a manner that any water or gas which is present in the peat, that gets expelled, that gets removed. Okay, so over thousands of years of continued burial and compression causes the peat to change into different grades of coal. Now this peat, okay, which gets compressed for thousands of years, sometimes millions of years, and that goes on to change the peat into different formations of coal. Like we said, they take different forms, right, depending on how they have compressed, how long they have compressed, right? So if they have been compressed and remained in that compact form, they go on to form a solid rock-like material. Otherwise, they don't. Okay, they are very soft and crumbles. Okay, so depending on the time of the deposit, the burial of the deposit, the compression, the compactness, the coal, the peat changes into different grades of coal. All right. So the different kinds of coal that over time is produced, and those are lignite, bituminous, and anthracite. These are different kinds of coal that is produced, or that is the result of the continued burial and compression, which is caused to make the peat change into different grades of coal over a period of time. Now, 1/3 of the energy that we use throughout the world comes from coal. 1/3. If the energy of the world is divided into 3 parts, 1, 2, 3, okay, so 1/3 of it comes from the coal. Coal is used to generate energy that we use. So 1/3 of the energy comes from the coal, with the use of the coal. So you can see how we, the people living in the entire earth, in the entire globe, depend upon the coal. Alright, it's very important. Coal is very important energy resource. Okay, it's used in production of many chemical products. Alright, including medicines and pesticides. So coal is used to, of course, to generate energy, but it is also used for the production of some products, chemical products like medicine, pesticides, etc. Okay, India, our country, is highly dependent upon coal for meeting its commercial energy requirements. Okay, our country depends way too much on the coal for meeting its needs. And what are those needs? Those are power generation and supplying energy to industries as well as for domestic needs. So the energy which is supplied for the running of the industries, for the running of the households like electricity, heating, etc. All these are made available to us with the use of coal as the energy source. Okay, so in India we depend heavily upon the coal for meeting our needs. Okay, the All India coal production target for the year 2016 and 17 was fixed at 724.71 million tons. This was the target for coal production for the year 2016 and 17. So it's a huge amount, right? So this shows that how our dependency, the dependency of our country on coal, upon coal, is large, is heavy. Okay? Now coal is heavy and bulky. material. It's not light. That's why I said it looks like rocks, right? It's heavy and it's bulky. But after its use, when it is burnt, okay, it becomes ash. You know how ash, it goes into the soil, all right? It's very light. If you blow it, it flows, all right? It flies, or then it disappears in the air, okay? Now, if heavy industries or thermal power stations are located on or near the coal fields, the cost and problems of transportation of this fuel becomes almost negligible. Now, coal is very important energy source, right? Now, when the industries and power stations and factories which use coal to run its activities, right? When these industries are located near the coal fields, near the coal mines from where the coal is taken, okay, where the coal is excavated. Now, when that happens, then these industries, these thermal power stations, these factories, they benefit from their location, which is very near to the coal mines and coal fields, because the transportation of this material, which is used as energy source to run their factories, to run their industries, to run their power station, that transportation cost is almost zero because it's so near, right? People can carry it in their back in sacks and then transport it from the coal mines to the factories where it is used, okay? Because of this very reason, okay, heavy industries and thermal power stations and factories, they build their factories and they build their stations where they work, where they use their machines near the coal fields, so that they don't have to pay extra for the transportation, so that their transportation cost is almost zero, and they can easily get the coal transported by people or vehicle or animals from the coal mines or coal fields to the industries or to the factories or thermal stations, power stations. All right. So that was coal. Now next, conventional power. The next conventional energy source that we are going to look at is petroleum. We all have heard of petroleum or petrol, right? We use petrol to run our bikes, to run our motorcycles, to run our vehicles, trucks, buses, etc. Right? We all know of petrol. We can go to the petrol station, get petrol, pay the money and get the petrol, right? Now, this petrol or petroleum is also important source of energy, okay? Petroleum is a liquid fossil fuel. Now, coal is also fossil fuel, but it's solid. Now, petroleum is liquid, okay? It's not solid. Now, how is petroleum or this liquid fossil fuel acquired? How do people get it? How do we get it? Do we mine it like coal? Do we excavate it? How do we get it? So, for getting petroleum, wells are dug on the ground, okay? Sometimes in the sea as well, in the ocean as well, okay? So, after digging the well, then what happens? The hole is drilled even further down into the earth's crust, okay? And from there, the oil is brought to the surface, okay? Now, the oil that comes up to the surface, that is not petroleum. That is not petrol, okay? That is liquid fossil fuel, but then it is not called petroleum. It's called crude oil. Okay, and this crude oil is unrefined. It is not refined. Alright, now we'll understand why it's called unrefined. Now this crude oil, after bringing onto the surface, that is transported to refineries where it is refined and changed into petrol or petrochemicals. Okay, so the petroleum that we get in the petrol station, in the gas station, that is refined crude oil. When we get the oil from under the ground, that oil is not petroleum but crude oil, which is unrefined petroleum. Once that is sent to the refineries where the oil is refined, and that refined oil is called petroleum, and that can be used. Alright. Now, in this process of how the crude oil is changed into petroleum or petrol and petrochemicals, in that process, various byproducts are also obtained, meaning there are other things that are also produced, okay, apart from petrol or petrochemicals. Now, these byproducts are used by textile industries, for the production of chemicals, etc. Okay? Alright. Now, petroleum, it's very important. Another important fossil fuel or another important source of energy. Why? Because petroleum provides fuel which is used for generating heating, provide lighting, running machineries and vehicles, lubricants for machineries. When the machines don't work, then we use petroleum to lubricate the machine so that it functions properly, so that there is no rust and there is no any hampering of the movement of the machineries. It is also used as raw materials for manufacturing different products such as plastics, chemicals, etc. Right? So I said that some of the byproducts of crude oil, when it goes to the refineries for changing crude oil to petroleum, there are byproducts. There are other products which are produced. So those products are used for the manufacture of plastics, chemicals, etc. Okay, that's why petroleum is very important resource. Now, the crude oil that we just talked about, which we get after digging into the earth, into the soil, that is obtained from sedimentary rocks. Now, sedimentary rocks is a one of the various types of rocks. Okay? Now, when it is obtained from sedimentary rocks, it emits very little smoke, okay, and leaves no ash and can be, So, crude oil is obtained from sedimentary rocks, okay. They are obtained from the rocks which are known as sedimentary, not any other rocks. And when crude oil or its refined product, finished product, which is petroleum, when it is used, okay, for burning, or when it's used for running vehicles or running machines, it emits very little smoke. It does not emit or produce a lot of smoke, and it leaves no ash, and it can be used till the last drop of it. Okay, so it's very useful. Okay, the demand for petroleum or petroleum products has increased throughout the world in recent years because it's very important. It is used for various activities, okay, like for running the machines, running motor vehicles, running the ships, running the aeroplanes, and lots of other things. All right. So that is why the demand for petroleum, the demand for crude oil, and the demand for petroleum products has rapidly increased in the recent years. Now in India, where can we get petroleum? From where do we get petroleum? So in India, Mumbai High produces 63% of the entire production. Assam produces 16% and Gujarat 18%. Okay, so the place from where we get the most of the petroleum that our country produces, that we get from Mumbai High, and then next is Gujarat, and then Assam. Okay. Apart from these three areas, some oil is also found, or some crude oil is also found in the states of Tamil Nadu, Arunachal Pradesh and Andhra Pradesh. Alright. India produced 36.01 million tons of crude petroleum in 2016 and 17. Okay, so the amount of the crude oil produced by India is huge because its demand is huge. In Western India, in the western part of India, Mumbai High, Basin and Alia Belt are important offshore oil fields. Offshore meaning off the shore. So this must be in the water bodies. Okay, in the sea. We know that when we dig for crude oil, we dig on the surface, land surface as well as offshore. Okay, so the offshore oil fields in India, they are found in the western part of our country, and they are Mumbai High, Basin and Alia Belt. Okay, in Gujarat, the important oil fields are in Ankleshwar near Vadodara. Okay. And the oil or the crude oil that we get from these parts of our country that are brought to Trombay and Koyali for its refinery, okay, for refining them. And that refined crude oil is called petroleum. Okay. Now in Lunaj and Kalol, there are also in these two places there are oil fields, and these oil fields are located near Ahmedabad. Okay, so most of the oil fields that we have in our country, they are in the western part of our country. Now in the eastern part also we have some oil fields, and in the eastern part of India, Assam is that one state where we have the oldest oil producing fields. Okay, so Assam is the oldest oil producing state of India. It has three important oil fields, and they are Nahar Katia, Moran Hugrijan and Digboy. And the oil that are found in these areas, in these three oil fields, they are brought to Digboy, Numaligarh, Guwahati and Bongaigaon in Assam and Barauni in Bihar for refining it. Okay. In our country, if we look at the entire country and try to see how many oil refineries are there, there are 18 oil refineries, and in these refineries crude oil is transported, and from there the refined crude oil or petroleum is produced. Now the third conventional energy source that we are going to look at now is called natural gas. Now, of all the conventional energy source, natural gas is the clean energy resource. Okay. Now, this energy resource can be associated sometimes with petroleum, or it is not associated with petroleum. Alright. It is like petroleum extracted by digging wells into the earth's crust. Okay, but unlike oil, unlike crude oil, unlike petroleum and unlike coal, natural gas does not require processing or process of refining. Okay, it just has to be made clear of impurities, and after that it is ready to be used by the consumer for carrying out activities. Okay, While natural gas is burnt, while it is used, it produces carbon dioxide. Okay, and when it burns hotter and clearer than other fossil fuels, which are petroleum and coal. Okay, so it burns hotter. It is much more efficient, and it burns clearer, okay, than the other fuels, and it is also cheaper than coal, cheaper than petroleum. Okay, and natural gas can also be used to generate electricity. It can also be used for the production of electricity. Okay, so as we can see, natural gas has many advantages, right? It can be used for a variety of purposes, but it has one big problem, and that is it is limited. It can be over anytime if we keep on using or overusing it. Okay, if it gets exhausted, if this resource gets exhausted, it can just be over and not be available to us. Alright, so that is the biggest problem that we have to face when it comes to availability or usage of natural gas. So natural gas is used as a source of energy as well as an industrial raw material in the petrochemical industries. So the petrochemical industries, like the use of crude oil, natural gas is also used as a source of energy and as also raw material. Raw material are those materials which, when used and they're manufactured to form a finished product. Okay, like for example, in making of cotton clothing, the raw material is cotton, okay, and the finished product is a cotton shirt. Alright, so in the same manner, natural gas can also be used as raw material, not only any source of energy, but also raw material, and it goes on to produce final result, the outcome. Okay, in India, in the year 2016 to 17, about 31.90 billion cubic meters of natural gas was produced. So huge amount of natural gas was produced in India in these years. Okay, more than 3/4 of the production comes from Mumbai High. So large amount of natural gas that is produced in our country that comes from Mumbai High, Mumbai. 10% from Gujarat, 7% from Assam, and the remaining portion comes from states like Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Tripura, and Rajasthan. So just like petroleum or crude oil, majority of natural gas can be acquired from Mumbai, Gujarat, and Assam. Okay, but there are other reserves of natural gas as well, and those are Krishna Godavari Basin and the Gulf of Cambay. These are also some of the large reserves of natural gas. From here, natural gas can be obtained, can be acquired. Alright. Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which are on the right side of the peninsular part of India, in the Bay of Bengal. In those islands also there are some reserves of natural gas. Okay. Now, this gas is also used in the households. Okay, this gas is also used in the movement of vehicles, in propelling vehicles. All right, cars. So the gas which is used in the household is called LPG or liquefied petroleum gas, and the gas which is used for running vehicles is called CNG, which is called compressed natural gas. Okay, so these are two different kinds of gases which are used in our everyday lives. So when you go to the petrol pump, the gas station, then you see there's a separate counter to get CNG. Right? So the next time you see it, you know that it's a part of natural gas, and CNG stands for compressed natural gas. Alright? And the gas that you use to cook in your houses. Your mom cooks, or when you cook, then you know that LPG is liquefied petroleum gas. So you see how we use natural gas as energy source for continuing or for doing activities that we do or we need for running our daily lives. Alright? The next energy source that we are going to look at is electricity. We all know electricity, right? We need light, we need power to use our TV, to use our radio, to use our mobile phones, to use our laptop, etc. To use our fan, to use our lights, etc. Right? Electricity is very important because without electricity, we would be living in the dark. Right? We would not be able to use our gadgets. Right? So electricity is very important. So electricity is an important requirement for the progress and prosperity of a nation. Without electricity, a nation cannot develop. A nation cannot progress, move forward in development, and a nation cannot prosper. With electricity, things can be worked, okay? And as a result of it, a nation can develop itself, alright? Electricity today has varied uses. Electricity is used for various reasons, right? Various purposes. Earlier, electricity was used only for getting some light. But today, electricity is used for driving, for moving the vehicles. Electricity is used for driving trains. Electricity is used for cooking. Electricity is used for using your gadgets, providing power to your mobile phones, iPad, your tablets, etc. So it has various uses, okay? Its consumption or electricity's consumption or the use of electricity is considered as an index of development. So if a country uses loads of electricity or it has immense use of electricity, then we can say that country is developed. If a country does not use electricity or very less electricity, then we know that that country is not developed enough to use electricity. Okay? Hydroelectricity and thermal electricity are two main types of electrical energy. So when we talk about electricity as a source of energy, then there are two types of electric energy. One is hydroelectricity and the other is thermal electricity. Alright? So let us look at what is hydroelectricity and what is thermal electricity. Now hydroelectricity is generated by fast flowing water. So in hydro, water is involved, right? Water is needed for the generation of electricity. Now in thermal electricity, the electricity is generated by using coal, petroleum and natural gas. Okay? Excuse me. Hydroelectricity is a renewable resource. Okay? So, hydroelectricity is produced with the use of renewable resource. Okay, renewable resource is the water. Water as a source can be renewed. Okay, but in the production of thermal electricity, non-renewable resources are used. So non-renewable resources are coal, petroleum, natural gas, etc. These are non-renewable resources. Okay. So some of the examples of hydroelectricity projects are Bhakra Nangal, Damodar Valley Corporation, Kopili Hydel Project, etc. Okay, these projects are built to produce electricity. Okay, and there are over 310 thermal power plants in India. For example, they are in Loktak, they are in Santhaldi, Talcher, Neyveli, Ukai, Dhuvaram, etc. Alright. Now the next kind of energy that we are going to look at is nuclear or atomic energy. Okay. Now in this chapter, this topic of nuclear or atomic energy does not fall in conventional or non-conventional, but this is just to help us understand different kinds of energy. Okay. So nuclear or atomic energy is produced from uranium and thorium. These are the two elements which goes on to the production of atomic energy. Now these uranium and thorium, they are available in Jharkhand and in the Aravalli range of Rajasthan. So they are available in the two states in our country, which is Jharkhand and Rajasthan. Okay, but some monazite sands of Kerala or some parts of Kerala are also rich in the thorium deposit. So from there also you can use it in the production of atomic or nuclear energy. Okay, India as a whole is very rich in thorium deposits. Thorium deposits are very important for the production of atomic or nuclear energy. Okay, now how does nuclear or atomic energy produced with thorium or uranium? Now thorium and uranium are obtained from the deposits and they are then changed. Okay, they are then changed in the structure of their atoms. The structure of their atoms are changed, and as a result of this change, nuclear or atomic energy is produced. Okay, so when the change of atomic structures in the uranium and thorium takes place, energy is released in the form of heat, which is utilized to generate electric power. Okay, so this is how nuclear or atomic energy is produced. In India, there are 6 nuclear power stations, and they are Tarapur in Maharashtra, Kalpakam in Tamil Nadu, Rawatbhata in Rajasthan, Narora in Uttar Pradesh, Kakrapara in Gujarat, and Kaiga in Karnataka. So these are 6 nuclear power stations that exist in India, and they provide the energy source which is atomic or nuclear energy. Alright.